The FBI has a secret. It's not about aliens or a second shooter or some hidden bunker under a mountain. It's a secret about who they really are in the 21st century. We think of them as the cops, the investigators, the good guys who show up after a digital disaster. But the truth is, the FBI runs one of the most sophisticated and active hacking teams on the entire planet. And the most unsettling part? To catch the world's most dangerous criminals, they had to become them. Everyone wants to know if the FBI has ever been truly hacked. We've all seen the movies where a lone coder in a hoodie brings the government to its knees. We've dug through declassified documents, federal court records, and the darkest corners of hacker forums to find that answer for you. And yes, there have been breaches, embarrassing ones. But what we discovered is a story that is far more shocking than a simple data breach. The real story isn't about who hacked the FBI. It's about who the FBI is hacking. And the answer might just change how you think about the line between law and crime forever. To understand this story, you first have to understand the battlefield. The internet isn't just a network of computers. It's the biggest crime scene in human history. And for the United States, the FBI is the lead detective on the case. When a digital bomb goes off, they're the ones who get the call. Think back to 2015. A breach of a government agency so massive, so catastrophic, it was called a cyber Pearl Harbor. It wasn't the Pentagon or the CIA. It was a place most people had never even heard of, the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM. This is basically the HR department for the entire federal government, and it was torn wide open. The hackers, later attributed to the Chinese state, didn't just steal a list of names and emails. They stole everything. They took the personal information of 22 million current and former federal employees, and even their families. We're talking social security numbers, financial histories, and medical records. But here's where it gets truly terrifying. They also stole millions of SF-86 forms. That's the 127-page questionnaire you have to fill out to get a national security clearance. It asks for every mistake you've ever made, every debt you've ever had, every embarrassing secret, every foreign contact, every personal vulnerability. It's a roadmap for blackmail. The hackers didn't just steal data. They stole the government's secrets, one employee at a time. The FBI was tasked with leading the investigation. It was a ghost hunt. How do you track an invisible enemy sponsored by a foreign superpower who routed their attack through a dozen different countries? It was a painstaking process of digital forensics, following faint breadcrumbs left in server logs and network traffic. It showed the world the scale of the threat the FBI was up against. Nation-states with unlimited resources waging a silent war. The OPM breach was a brutal lesson in how vulnerable even the most powerful government on earth could be. But it's not just foreign governments. The threat became personal. It came for our wallets. By the late 2010s, a new form of digital extortion was exploding: ransomware. Hackers would lock up the files of a hospital, a school, or a city and demand millions in cryptocurrency to release them. In May 2021, it hit home for millions of Americans. A group of hackers called DarkSide locked up the systems of the Colonial Pipeline, the artery that supplies nearly half the fuel to the entire East Coast. Suddenly, gas stations from Florida to Virginia were running dry. Panic buying started. The price of gas shot up. For a few days, a handful of anonymous hackers held a critical piece of American infrastructure hostage. Colonial Pipeline paid the ransom. They sent 75 Bitcoin, worth about $4.4 million at the time, into the digital void. They thought the money was gone forever. That's the point of cryptocurrency, right? Anonymous, untraceable. But the FBI had other ideas. They didn't just investigate the crime. They went after the money. Their specialized ransomware and digital asset task force began tracking the payment. It's a common misconception that Bitcoin is completely anonymous. It's pseudonymous. Every transaction is recorded on a public ledger, the blockchain. If you can link a person to a digital wallet, you can follow the money. The FBI watched as the 75 Bitcoin was moved from wallet to wallet, split up and laundered through a complex web of transactions designed to hide its origin. It was a high-stakes game of digital cat and mouse. Then, weeks later, the Department of Justice made a stunning announcement. They had recovered 63.7 of the Bitcoin, worth about $2.3 million. They had managed to get a court order and seize the private key, the password, for one of the hackers' wallets. How did they do it? The FBI was tight-lipped. They mentioned they had identified the key, but not the method. Did they have an informant inside the DarkSide group? Did they find a security flaw in the way the hackers stored their crypto? Or did they hack the hackers? This is where the story pivots. The FBI as the digital cavalry, riding in to save the day and recover the stolen money, makes for a great headline. It's the image they want us to have, but it's only half the truth. Because to hunt the world's most sophisticated criminals in the dark alleys of the internet, the FBI realized they couldn't just be cops. They had to learn the criminal's trade. They had to become hackers themselves. And that's where the rules of the game and the law itself start to get very, very blurry. Imagine a piece of software. It's not an app. It's not a game. Its only purpose is to infect a computer, bypass its security, and secretly transmit the user's private information back to its owner. We have a word for that. Malware. A virus. A Trojan horse. But when the FBI builds and deploys it, they call it something else. They call it a network investigative technique, or NIT. A NIT is, for all intents and purposes, the FBI's very own hacking tool. And the story of how they used it on a massive scale starts in the darkest corner of the internet, a chat site on the dark web called Playpen. In 2015, the FBI tracked the physical server for Playpen to a location in North Carolina and seized it. Normally, that would be the end of the story. Shut down the site, arrest the administrator. Case closed. But the FBI did something unprecedented. Something that shocked privacy advocates and legal scholars to their core. They didn't shut the site down. They moved it. They began hosting the site themselves from a government server facility in Virginia. For 13 days, the FBI was the administrator of one of the world's largest dark web child sites. And as thousands of users from around the globe logged on, the FBI was waiting for them. When a user logged into Playpen from the Tor browser, which is designed to anonymize a user's location, the FBI's server would push a piece of code to their computer. This was the NIT, the malware. It was designed to exploit a vulnerability in the Firefox browser that Tor is based on. Once on the user's computer, the NIT would bypass Tor's protection and force the computer to send back its real IP address, its operating system details, and a unique identifier for the machine. It was a digital de-anonymizing machine. The FBI effectively unmasked over 1,000 users who believed they were completely anonymous. This led to hundreds of investigations and convictions of child exploiters. On the surface, it sounds like a clear win. The FBI used a clever technique to catch some of the worst criminals imaginable. But here's where it gets complicated. To do this, the FBI hacked over 1,000 computers. And they did it all with a single warrant. One single warrant, issued by a single magistrate judge in the Eastern District of Virginia. Now think about that. A judge in Virginia authorized the FBI to search computers not just in Virginia or even in the United States, but in 120 different countries. In Australia, the UK, Chile, Greece, all over the world. Legally, this was a minefield. The Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution protects against unreasonable searches and seizures, and generally requires a warrant to specify the place to be searched. Thus, a warrant from a Virginia judge gives the FBI the authority to hack a computer in Copenhagen. Defense attorneys across the country argued, absolutely not. They claimed it was a massive overreach of government power, a digital dragnet that violated the constitutional rights of hundreds of people. They argued that if the FBI can get one friendly judge to approve a mass hacking operation, what's to stop them from doing it for any crime? Drug investigations? Political protests? The government's response was simple. This was the only way. Criminals are using sophisticated technology to hide. So law enforcement needs to use sophisticated technology to find them. The courts were split. Some threw out the evidence obtained by the NIT, calling it an illegal search. Others allowed it, arguing the gravity of the crime outweighed the privacy concerns. The Playpen case set a terrifying precedent. It opened a Pandora's box, leading to a change in federal rules of criminal procedure, known as Rule 41. The change now explicitly allows judges to issue warrants that authorize the FBI to hack into computers no matter where they are located, if the user is using technology like Tor to hide their location. So let's be perfectly clear about what this means. The FBI now has the legal authority to deploy malware and hack into computers anywhere in the world, with a single warrant, if they believe that person is using anonymizing technology. The debate is no longer if the FBI can hack you. The debate is when and why. They went from investigating hackers to deploying their own on a global scale. But this complex, symbiotic relationship with the hacking world didn't start with Playpen. In fact, for decades, some of the FBI's most valuable assets have also been their biggest liabilities. There's a revolving door in the world of cybersecurity. One day you're a black hat hacker, breaking into systems for profit or notoriety. The next, you might get caught and turned into an informant. Or you might be a white hat, a security researcher, helping companies find flaws before the bad guys do. The FBI operates in this gray space, often relying on the expertise of people who know the criminal world because they used to be a part of it. Take the story of Max Butler, a hacker who went by the name Ice Max. In the late 90s, Butler was a legendary figure in the hacking community. But he also had a side gig. He was a security consultant for the FBI, helping them understand the burgeoning world of cybercrime. He was one of the good guys, a whitehead, who had the trust of federal law enforcement. But the temptation was too strong. Butler went rogue. He created a digital marketplace called Carter's Market, a one-stop shop for criminals to buy and sell stolen credit card data. He wasn't just running the site, he was the main supplier. He hacked into financial institutions and rival criminals, stealing and consolidating huge databases of card information. At his peak, he controlled over 2 million stolen credit card numbers and was responsible for over $86 million in fraudulent charges. The FBI's former consultant had become one of the biggest cybercriminals in the world. Eventually, the FBI caught up to him. His old handlers had to hunt down their former asset. He was sentenced to 13 years in prison. At the time, the longest sentence ever given for hacking in the United States. The case of Max Butler is a stark illustration of the dangerous game the FBI plays. To fight fire, they often have to get very close to the flame. This brings us back to the central question. With all these threats, with state-sponsored attackers, ransomware gangs, and rogue insiders, has the FBI itself ever been seriously hacked? Have their crown jewels, the sensitive files on informants, counterterrorism operations, and top-secret investigations, ever been stolen? The official answer is no. There has never been a publicly disclosed catastrophic breach of the FBI's core classified systems on the scale of the OPM hack. But that doesn't mean they're invincible. It doesn't mean they haven't been breached. In November of 2021, tens of thousands of people received a very alarming email. It appeared to come from a legitimate FBI email address, eims@ic.fbi.gov. The subject line was, "Urgent, Threat Actor in Systems." The email, filled with garbled technical jargon, claimed that a notorious cybersecurity researcher was the culprit behind a sophisticated supply chain attack. It was a terrifying warning, coming directly from the FBI. Except it was all fake. A hacker had found a vulnerability not in the FBI's main network, but in an external-facing portal, the Law Enforcement Enterprise Portal, or LEAP. This portal is used to share information with state and local law enforcement. The hacker found a flaw in the code that allowed them to send an email blast from the FBI's server. They didn't access any sensitive data. They didn't steal any files. But they managed to use the FBI's own infrastructure to blast out 100,000 spam emails, creating chaos and confusion and deeply embarrassing the Bureau. It was a low-level hack, but it was highly visible. It proved that even the FBI's perimeter had holes. And it wasn't an isolated incident. The FBI relies on a program called InfraGard. It's a partnership between the Bureau and private sector leaders, CEOs, IT experts, and infrastructure operators to share sensitive information about cyber and physical threats. It's a circle of trust. In late 2022, that trust was broken. A hacker using the handle Uwu no Suke gained access to the InfraGard database. They didn't use some sophisticated zero-day exploit. They used a simple, old-school social engineering trick. They pretended to be the CEO of a major US financial corporation and applied for an InfraGard account. Even though the application included their real hacker alias email address and a fake phone number, it was approved. They were in. Once inside, the hacker found they had access to the contact information of over 80,000 high-level members. This included names, email addresses, and their affiliation. The hacker then posted a sample of the data for sale on a criminal forum, asking for $50,000. Their motive, they claimed, was to highlight the FBI's poor security practices. Again, this wasn't a breach of the FBI's classified case files, but it was a breach of the FBI's trust. They had failed to protect the data of the very people they had recruited to help them. So why haven't we seen a truly catastrophic hack of the FBI's most secret files? There are a few likely reasons. First, security through obscurity and complexity. The FBI's most sensitive networks are almost certainly air-gapped. That means they are physically disconnected from the public internet. You can't hack a server from across the world if it doesn't have a connection to the outside world. To breach those systems, you'd need physical access or a compromised insider, which is a much harder proposition. Their security is also layered, like an onion. To get to the core, an attacker would have to get through multiple firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and authentication protocols. It's designed to be a nightmare to navigate. But there's another, more unsettling possibility. If a major, nation-state level breach of the FBI's deepest secrets did occur, would we even be told? The OPM breach was disclosed because it affected millions of ordinary government employees who needed to be notified. If a foreign intelligence service quietly stole the entire FBI informant database, would revealing that breach do more harm than good? Would the announcement itself put lives at risk and compromise ongoing operations? It's entirely possible that a significant breach could happen and be kept a closely guarded national secret. We simply don't know what we don't know. So, has the FBI been hacked? The answer isn't a simple yes or no. It's a messy, complicated reality. They haven't been hacked in the Hollywood blockbuster way we might imagine. No lone hacker has brought the Bureau to its knees and leaked all its secrets. But they've been poked, prodded, and embarrassed. Their outer defenses have been breached. Their partner databases have been compromised. and their own trusted consultants have turned on them. They are a constant target, and they are not invulnerable. But the discovery we made, the truth that is far more significant, is that the FBI is no longer just the cyber cop. They are now one of the biggest and most active players in the hacking game itself. They write their own malware. They exploit security vulnerabilities. They operate in the same digital gray spaces as the criminals they hunt. They have successfully argued in court for the legal authority to hack into any computer anywhere in the world under certain circumstances. And that leaves us with a profound question for the 21st century. In the endless war against digital monsters, how do we make sure our protectors don't become monsters themselves? The line between a network investigative technique and a piece of spyware is a matter of perspective, and a piece of paper signed by a judge. As technology advances, with AI-powered cyber attacks and quantum computing on the horizon, the government will argue for more power, more access, and more authority to hack. The challenge for us is to decide how much of our own privacy we're willing to sacrifice for the promise of security. This debate over government power and digital rights is happening right now, in courtrooms and in closed-door congressional hearings, and it affects every single one of us with a phone, a laptop, or a smart device in our home. So I want to know what you think. Drop a comment below. Where should we draw the line on government hacking? Is it a necessary evil or a slippery slope to a surveillance state? And if you want to dive even deeper into the secret world of government surveillance, you're going to want to check out our video on the NSA's most powerful and controversial spying tools. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because in this digital age, the truth is often hidden in plain sight, and we're here to help you find it.